2 years ago, I tied the knot with my 33-year-old wife at the age of 38. We've been in a relationship for 3 years, and she was more interested in getting married than I am. I consented to it solely to make her happy. It was about a year ago that we started trying to have another baby. My wife was the one who insisted on that. Our attempts to come to terms with the situation were mostly unsuccessful, and we faced significant challenges during that time. My mental health was severely affected, leading me to seek a test for myself. At the time we were struggling to conceive, my wife had become abusive and I attempted to save her. The task of managing her behavior was too much to handle. The doctor informed me that I was sterile after the test, to be honest, several days later. My heart was pretty much consumed by it. Despite not being aware of having a child, I had started to picture myself as preparing for the role of father. I had an inclination to become one. Upon learning that I would never be able to father, it was the most devastating news for me. The moment has arrived. However, the worst was yet to come. I had been attempting to persuade my wife that I was responsible for our disagreement. Although we were unable to have children, I was anxious about her discovering that her desires were unattainable. It's highly likely that it won't happen with me. I informed my wife about the test results a few days ago, but she has not responded. The individual who ultimately caused me to be surprised. She sat me down and informed me that she had some fluids 4 days after I found out I was sterile. The news was extremely important to me, and I was very scared because I believed it would be a disaster. My infertility had been discovered by her in a certain way. She declined and informed me that she was finally expecting a baby. I was completely taken aback by her words, but luckily she was experiencing happiness. Without knowing what my true feelings were, I began to celebrate without delay. I endeavored to be a part of her happiness without questioning my honesty. But the outcome was not satisfactory. The following day, I was subjected to another test to confirm that I had genuinely been sterile. Once again, I was able to achieve the same results. If I wasn't the father, my wife was probably cheating on me. I am the individual in question. The medical intervention required for artificial conception was expensive. Due to my sole earning capacity amongst us, she couldn't have been a part of it, getting anything done without asking for that kind of money before the start. It was evident that she had been unfaithful. I didn't take any action because the thought was so strange and terrible. During the next few days, my wife organized a full-scale party to announce her pregnancy. She looked very happy, and I was just as devastated, but I couldn't let that cloud my judgment. I had to face the situation because I needed to get to the heart of it. I kept it a secret from my family members and didn't disclose anything to them. This was too personal and uncomfortable for anyone to share. I was unable to express my thoughts to my wife due to the fact that it had been too long. Second, I was curious about the identity of the father of this woman's child, as it might have affected my decision. If I were to confront her, she might just leave without warning. Fortunately, I was informed on the day of the party. There were a considerable number of people in attendance, comprising of my family, friends, and colleagues. She extended an invitation to a neighbor who lived across the street from us. A 27-year-old man is our neighbor and certainly looks much better than me. There is no question about it. His modeling skills may make him more attractive than most people, but it's not just my opinion. He is still striving to establish himself as a model. His aunt, who owns the house he currently resides in, moved in with him to be closer to the city. Due to the fact that his family resides in a far-off location, this guy was always a favorite of mine from the beginning, and my wife would often cook meals for him along with his aunt. At first, he had moved into the room. He has occasionally visited our home for dinner, and we've chatted about his work. My wife's literary background is matched by his exceptional reading skills and verbal ability, in addition to his academic qualifications. The first time they met, they had a lot in common and instantly became good friends. I never had any issues with the guy because he was so sweet and I trusted in my wife. Moreover, on the day of our party, my wife's eyes twinkled as he entered the house. There was a feeling that something had been altered. As soon as he stepped inside, she reached out to him and they embraced for an hour. She has not hugged any of the other guests. This was completely unnoticed by others, but I did and felt like they had something on their mind. I was only interested in finding a way to verify it. I opted to go to the lube for an excuse and ended up in the bedroom, opened my wife's laptop. After she informed me that she had texted, I was able to check her phone while she was sleeping. Despite being pregnant, I found nothing suspicious. It had been a bit more challenging to access her laptop since whenever I was at home. She was constantly observing or inputting text messages on something. Whenever I asked her what she was doing, she would turn the screen away and say, "I see you in that place." Her novel was in the process of being written. The situation had been ongoing for a prolonged period, and I respected her privacy as I had actually done it, was under the impression that she was composing a novel. The circumstances had altered, and I was convinced that there was no novel, and it was solely one of the old ones, a justification to conceal the contents of her laptop from me. Fortunately, I was not given a password or any other easy means of access. Through extensive searching, I was able to locate another email address in addition to her genuine one. I shifted to that option and read the emails that were sent and received. Those emails that I read contained both my wife's love and personal messages, the other individual who lives next door to us. I was able to identify the email address as he was using his actual name, but I also found it relevant in the more recent case. She had been in contact with him via email, revealing that she was pregnant. He was dissatisfied and upset, leading to the mail being halted temporarily, which is expected to be an unpleasant outcome. He desired to end the relationship, but my wife was unwilling to let him go. The most terrible email I've received was from her, stating that she had spoken into the receiver. She requested assistance from a lawyer friend who would file for divorce right after the birth is born. The reason she even tried to convince me to have a baby with her was for her to get married. In order to move forward with her life after the divorce, she must pay both alimony and child support. After a few months, our neighbor and we are happy to live next door. I was filled with horror upon reading that, and the feeling of it still lingers in my mind. Whenever I think of that email, I become menacing. I quickly put my feelings behind and went back to work, taking a few breaks. Before deleting and hiding the email on my phone, I took pictures of it. My concern was not as immediate as it was about the cheating, but was more repulsed by what my wife was attempting to achieve, to undertake. The only thing I was concerned about was cheating on her into having a child with me and then making things worse. I have paid all that money to help her live her life with her struggling boyfriend. Was extremely agitated. The icing on the cake was her exceptional acting abilities, but I had no suspicions whatsoever. Nevertheless, her happiness was almost disturbing, but I was so upset that I chose to ignore it, to go the extra mile and seek my own revenge. After making a conscious decision to play along, I dropped the bomb on her at the last minute, predicting it. I was going to let her off the hook without causing her any hurt, betrayal, or frustration. Her dishonesty had left a profound impact on me. Despite the fact that I may sound like a psycho, I did what was necessary. I played the role of the ideal husband, father-to-be, for the following 9 months. It was a struggle to comprehend that she was being untruthful to me, but the more I trusted her and saw that she was not being truthful with me, the stronger my resolve to see her. This is accomplished. Every appointment with her doctor was attended by me, and I ensured that she consumed all the vitamins on her prescription. She spent a lot of time with me and was the most exceptional husband anyone could ask for. My wife underwent labor a few days ago. Although I was nervous about being in this situation, I didn't dwell on it. I took her to the hospital alone. I rang her parents, but not my mother's, as I didn't want them to be present in their presence. The situation became too hysterical. We had some time to ourselves since her parents had to drive for an hour to get to the hospital. Then I decided to drop the bomb on her. After ensuring her safety in the room, I informed her that I would be calling out to them. The neighbor suggested that he be present with her. She looked surprised and flaunted a bit while stating that there was no need for that. She was unwilling to let a stranger join her in the birthing process. I smiled at her and presented her with the results of my fertility tests, as well as other information. I filed for divorce a few days before her due date, which meant that I had already submitted the necessary divorce papers, made certain to bring something with me on that day. She continued through it and still looked confused, so I told her I wouldn't be able to help her. I didn't want to impregnate her, as it would have affected the baby's life. I disclosed to her the emails I had discovered on her covert account. The moment she finally caught up with the situation, her expression was so priceless as I left, and she couldn't find the right words. Due to my heart's beating rate, I assumed that I would also need to be admitted to the hospital. When I finally got out and called my neighbor to let him know that I'm not happy, the noise was still beating me. The wife was in the midst of childbirth. I didn't hold back and ended the conversation as soon as I received his response. Afterward, I got into my car and waited for my wife's family to arrive. Upon seeing her father's car pull up in the driveway, I drove out as quickly as possible. I could do it. After that, I decided to turn off my phone and drove for a while until I reached this location. The motel is located nearby and slightly out of the city. I had already packed my bags a few weeks back and kept them in the boot of my car. I had everything I required and was not caught without preparation. I spent the rest of the day watching TV, drinking beer, and doing everything I could think up. Might be able to distract me from the distractions. I slept peacefully that night, knowing that I had finished and dusted. The entire scheme of. Upon awakening the next day, I finally opened my phone. Despite receiving hundreds of texts from my wife and my neighbor, I was not bothered by any of them. I couldn't access the text messages that my parents and brother had sent me, but I did read them. I suspected that my wife had called them when she couldn't be reached, so I took the opportunity to talk to her, reach out to my parents, and engage in conversation. I informed them that I would be back home soon, and even suggested they bring my brother. I would be able to provide an explanation of the entire situation to them, as they did not know much about it. It is necessary to provide an explanation for the happenings. My parents' house was already being visited by my brother and his family, who seemed to be confused as I drove past. They were naturally annoyed, as they didn't want to miss their own child. The birth of their grandchild was also missed by them. I explained the entire story to them and shared my explanation when I sat down with them. By the time I was prepared to be inundated with questions and accusations, I had accomplished a lot. Nevertheless, there was no such event. My dad's sole comment was that he wanted to keep the situation as low as possible, and whether or not anyone else had any issues. The lack of response to other comments made on that topic left the discussion inconsolable. My family hasn't spoken much, but my wife has gone out of her way to make a difference. I am not justified in accusing me of ruining her experience of becoming a mother for the first time. Since I departed, she's been trying to reach out to me via phone and text messages, but I haven't received any response yet. A few hours ago, my neighbor sent me a text message stating that my wife was extremely upset and distressed. Let's set aside our differences and work towards a common solution with her. She made a unique appearance. I'm amazed by the courage displayed by these individuals. They keep trying to talk to me and make it seem like this is a small talk. Angry about. He also mentioned a few other things in his text, such as my wife's newfound interest in being married. It was a surprise for both of them when she fell in love with me again while pregnant. Either way, it's a good thing. It would be beneficial for me to try and give our marriage another chance. My neighbor had fallen for me again, so why did I call BS about it? Is there someone else in the picture? The reason for their belief that I am so unintelligent is unclear to me. My wife is angry, but I don't have any plans to move on. The fact that I had complete knowledge about everything is causing her significant frustration. Be present with her and tolerate the entire situation, accusing me of deceiving her. Ida for supporting my wife during her pregnancy and deceiving her, despite being aware of the truth. Despite the fact that the baby was not under my care, she had been unfaithful to me by telling me about our neighbor's behavior. The baby has been in my hotel room for almost a week now. I am not currently in the habit of visiting my wife, and I have no plans to go either. Despite making it clear that I am present, people are still texting and calling me, but I'm clueless as to why, disinterested in conversing with her or listening to her. My neighbor has taken it upon himself to block me, but I haven't yet blocked her. I received a text message from my wife that reminded me of her hopelessness and encouragement to seek help, returning to her. The only reason he is still with her and trying to make me forgive him is, without a doubt, The aim is to ensure that she receives a portion of the divorce settlement and alimony. The reason being, both of them are essentially without employment. My spouse's preference for being at home was appreciated by me, but she wasn't solely a stay-at-home mom. While doing her chores and staying at home, she was also engaging in unfaithfulness towards me. I was unforgivable, and I wasn't the one who suggested that she should have done it. She resigned from her job after getting married. I was a good friend when we were dating, and she used to work for me. I didn't want to deal with her, but she did express a desire to take charge of our household, take a stand against that too. She made the decision, and I got what I wanted. I have faith that my lawyer can help me with alimony once we are no longer together. It would be effortless for me to prove that she has been unfaithful. The difficulty my neighbor faces in securing high-paying modeling jobs has resulted in him handling his situation. The expenses for my wife and a baby will be added to the list of expenses. Even with all their financial resources, it was unattainable for them. Good luck to them. I'm relieved to have left them a better life now, knowing that I won't be responsible for anything. My attention is not the only thing that matters. I'm hoping that my wife comprehends the reason and doesn't waste more time by arguing with me. The separation. I'm not expecting her to, but considering her lack of intelligence, she could potentially be a good candidate. I'm also equipped to handle that. The images of the emails that were exchanged on her undisclosed email account are still intact. There's no need for me to worry since I have both saved on my phone and copied it to my laptop. The images on my account cannot be deleted by her, even if she decides to delete it. I am confident that I will be able to leave on time. If things go terribly wrong, I may opt to pay her the alimony, but at least I won't have to be with her. It's a stroke of luck for her. I'm allowing her to go away alone and have it forcefully kicked out of our house. The house is registered under my name. I'm anticipating the worst, and that this will probably come to an end soon. I was accurate when I updated 2 times. The settlement wasn't satisfactory with my wife, who is unintelligent, and has decided to negotiate. The sum of money I had offered was essentially the same as her previous spending. The marriage and that was a very generous act to me. The miracle she anticipates is beyond my comprehension, but it seems like a positive outcome for her. Yesterday, she texted me to inform me that she left the house today, and I was happy to return. It's possible that she had relocated to live with her parents or something. I was extremely disappointed to hear that she had just moved into our neighbor's house. The sight of her and her boyfriend's faces on a daily basis is something I still experience at the house. I entertained the idea of returning to my hotel-like living, but it didn't come to fruition because this was my home. I was entitled to live in any location of my choice. The fact that they would make me feel uneasy wasn't the reason I was going to pack up and go. After living with me, I questioned why my wife didn't choose to live with her parents instead. The divorce case was being influenced by our neighbor, who was making the most significant arguments. The situation became more problematic for her. I didn't have to think much because I was just scrolling through all the unread messages. Several individuals had reached out to me. I came across one from my wife's father, too. I had replied to a number of people's texts over the weekend, and his message was significant, had also become engrossed in it. The text was lengthy and expressed his remorse for what his daughter had done, as well as offering condolences. It was clear to me that they were vehemently against her. I was deeply affected by the words that were uttered by our father and served as a powerful validation of my feelings. The tears were piercing, but I managed to hold them back. He apologized for my wife's behavior and threatened to end our relationship. Communicated to him that she wished to contest the divorce. Despite everything that had occurred to me, I was unable to make sense of my wife's actions. Eventually, her actions were going to backfire, and it was clear that even someone like her had the advantage. It's easy to come to terms with that. Either she's truly foolish, or she has some twisted and sick tricks up her sleeves. I'm not expecting it to be the latter. But if so, I wouldn't pass it on to her. She is essentially the most terrible person. This place is bound to bring about difficulties, and I'm confident it won't be without downsides. They may try to make me feel uneasy or jealous, but I'm not willing to let them get the better of me. They're bound to use my skin and provoke me with their aggression. All in all, I'm still accumulating savings because I don't have to reside in a hotel. 3 more updates to come. It's been a month since my divorce negotiations began, and they have come to fruition. My wife's life has been ruined by it. There was no doubt about her cheating on me, as I could prove that. The credibility of my contention. She attempted to fabricate the truth about my alcoholism, which is also a false accusation. The reason I was sterile and she had been having an affair since we were young was due to both my sexuality. If I tried to imagine her in that way, I would become extremely cruel and bitter towards her. Despite everyone's knowledge, my decision to stop drinking last year was easily discredited. We made the choice to try for a baby and have since refrained from drinking alcohol. I'm unsure of why she thought that was going to be successful, and it appeared rather foolish on her part. A segment. She was only squeaking at straws as her original plan had failed, and now she was feeling frustrated. They were present because their baby daddy was too busy and unintelligent for them. By this stage, we both know full well that the odds are slim that she will go away with it. Any kind of alimony is very thin, and I believe she was aware of this to her boyfriend. She and her baby were unceremoniously kicked out of his house a few days ago. Yes, that's the truth. After hearing a lot of screaming and shouting from their dwelling, I witnessed the incident within minutes. The father's screams were heard as my wife and her son were forced out of the house. Brutal comments were made about her, and she was called every name in the book. As I watched from my living room, the moment I saw him pushing my wife, I realized it was just a scene to prolong our stay. While she was pregnant, I hurriedly joined in to assist. I am sorry, but I cannot tolerate the pain of a young and vulnerable child who has something that is not even close to being born. It's his fault. Upon my arrival at his doorstep, he had already locked the door shut while my wife was waiting patiently for me to arrive. Both she and her son were crying. Holding the baby in my hands, I leaned into my wife's arms and began to lead them back to my place. The person who lived across the street called my father-in-law to take her home. The house of. He came back and took her away, once again thanking me for my efforts. In just 1 hour, my wife was crying like a baby. I had been calming both the mother and child down. I had the urge to contact the police, but she persuaded me to release my hold on the case. She had no desire to face any more adversity. She was apologizing repeatedly for the events and revealed that she had been extremely underpaid. She was desperate to be with her loved one, but she had lost all her self-esteem and ethics. She was truly remorseful about everything. The woman stated that she would accept any situation and no longer engages in negotiations, resulting in the need for negotiation. The process of settling divorce is expedited. I reckon that's a positive thing. I am hopeful that she will eventually press charges and heal herself by pursuing this whole. Either way, it's a good thing. At first, I was not a good person, and I have no regrets about it.